things that's going on now that interest rates are spiking, and I kept hearing all this stuff. Oh, interest rates are going to come down. Interest can't stay up so high. Blah blah blah. Well, listen, when when interest rates went way low about 15 years ago, back in 08, I was one of those people who said, "Oh, interest rates can't stay this low. They've got to they've got to bounce back up." Well, it only took 15 years for that to happen. And now everybody's telling me, I keep hearing, "Oh, and smart people. I mean, not there's a buddy of mine who's an economist, and he's a smart guy. And he's like, well, you look at the core rate of inflation and which is everything minus housing, that's going down, or at least that's it's not going up. And so that's where the Fed is looking. And so interest rates will come down. And it's like, well, that sounds pretty good. But is it happening? And the answer is no, it's actually not happening. So, okay. So then what? If that's really what's going on, okay, if they're really looking at these things and going to adjust the interest rates based on that, how come it's not happening? And it's not happening. So what does that mean? Well, I'm not saying it's going to be 15 years of high interest rates, but maybe if that's what they've got to do to choke off inflation or whatever, who knows? The point is that now with a lot of transactions, we're seeing people going back to some of the old things that they used to do, making the same old mistakes, like with land contracts and stuff. Now, land contracts are sort of a tradition in Michigan, right? The idea with the land contract is we're going to transfer the title when you've made all of your payments. Now, with a mortgage, the typical way this is done, the bank doesn't hold the deed. You hold the deed. You actually own your property. Now, you do owe money to the bank, okay? This is the fundamentals of it. You owe money to the bank. And if you don't pay the money to the bank, then the bank's got to get paid back somehow, and they'll come after your house to get paid back, all right? But it's not a question of, because people say all the time, oh, the bank owns my house. No, they don't. You own your house. It's your house. It really is your house. It's just that if you don't pay the money that you owe to the bank, then they can come after your house instead of come after your car. That's the way it works. With land contract, though, it's different. With a land contract, you don't get ownership of the house. All right. You get something called equitable title, but you don't actually get ownership of the house until you've paid all the money. This is how people usually think about mortgages, when they say, oh, the bank owns the house. Well, with a land contract, the seller actually still does own the house. You're right with the land contract. But here's the problem. And it depends on whether you're buying or selling with the land contract. If you're selling, it's a bad deal to do a land contract, because here's the deal. If you do a land contract with somebody and you say, ooh, this will be great. I'll get all that wonderful interest because I'm not getting 6% or 8% or whatever percent interest on my other stuff this way. And it's secured by the house, and I can just forfeit it anytime they don't make a payment. They don't make a payment, I can forfeit the land contract and throw them out. Yeah, right. Except that they can reinstate the land contract up to 6 months later, and all they've got to do is make up the back payments. And if they've paid more than half, it's like 9 months. Okay, so you're the owner of the thing. They don't make a payment. You go, you sue them, you forfeit the land, you do all the stuff you got to do to forfeit the land contract, and then they don't get out. And then at the very last minute, the 11th hour, they show up with the payments, the back payment. You've got to reinstate the land contract. What? How's that a good deal for you? Right now, if everything works out, everything works out. And like everything else in life, like with all the estate planning that you hear about, oh, it worked for Uncle Charlie. Oh, Aunt Mabel did just fine doing it this way. Right. Because it worked out, they will tell you that it worked out. But the bad stuff, they don't repeat it. See, here's a kind of a rule of thumb. If you do a good job for somebody, okay, they'll repeat it like I think the rule is they'll repeat it 3 times. Okay. Maybe. The most you can hope for is they'll say, "Oh yeah, they did a good job for me." If they say it at all, I think it's like 3 times. If you do a bad job, or if they're just unhappy, or they don't understand, or whatever else, then they'll repeat it like 10 times. Okay? That's the way it works. When people are telling on other people, they're much more like 3 times more likely to say something negative than they are something positive. But when and here's no surprise, right? If they're telling on themselves, right? Then the only thing you ever hear is how it worked out. Okay? See, if they're telling, so this is how human beings are, right? If you're telling on somebody else, if you're telling about something else, and you had a negative experience, you'll repeat the negative experience till your grave, and the negative experience will keep getting better. Okay? The person will be ruder, the damage will be greater, the situation will become more and more outrageous. And having just gotten through Thanksgiving, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the family stories that get repeated, okay? And you think to yourself, that's an even better story than the last time I heard it. Yeah, it is, because that's what people do, okay? But if it's a good story, if they repeat it at all, it'll be bare bones. Unless, so if they're telling on somebody else, right? 3 times more likely to be negative than positive, and the story gets better. But if they're telling on themselves, it doesn't work like that. If they're telling on themselves, oh, I did this or I did that, everybody's got to be the hero, heroine of their own story. Okay, that's the way these things work. And frankly, it's our human perspective to think that the things we do are better than the things other people do. And if something went wrong, number one, we don't repeat it. If we got screwed over somehow, unless we can clearly blame that other person, you don't repeat it. People don't repeat that kind of thing, okay? Because it makes them look like an idiot. Oh, yeah, you got to take advantage of them. Okay? So they don't repeat it. But if it went well, then it shows how smart they are. And so now they do it. Now they do repeat it. It's the same way with these land contracts. The only ones you ever hear about are the ones that worked out. The freaking horror shows that I deal with, oh no, nobody wants to talk about that. So you don't do a land contract. I think land contracts are a big mistake if you're the seller. If you're the buyer, do it. Okay? If somebody's offering you a land contract, take it. Okay? You're in possession of the property. It's almost impossible to get it. It's almost impossible to lose it in foreclosure if you've got any sense at all. Okay. And generally speaking, you're much better off going up against, your normal good-hearted person than a bank or a mortgage company or a collection agency. Okay. So if you have the opportunity to buy on a land contract, by all means, do so. But if you're selling, there's another way to do it. You can still do seller financing because interest rates are absolutely absurd. All right. And they're going to stay that way for a while, at least for a while, they're going to stay that way. Will they get worse? When I bought my first house, the interest rate was like 10%. I think it was just over 10%. I thought that was a good deal. And I actually bought another place that was 13.5%, but I knew other people were paying 20%. Okay. So could it go to there? Yeah, it could go to there. Right. But if you're looking to buy and you can get a land contract, take it. If you're looking to sell, do not offer a land contract.